Let's see, are we Zooming yet?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to the December 28th Salina City Commission meeting to order. First, I would ask staff for confirmation of the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, we will have a roll call.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Franz.
Here.
Commissioner Hodges.
Here.
Commissioner Ryan. Mayor Hoppick.
Here. Okay, I would ask that we would all join in a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, I show where we have no awards or proclamations today. This is a point where we come to citizens forum. This is an opportunity for individuals to address the commission if they wish. If so, we ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, and please acknowledge your name and where you're from. And I believe there is instructions as to how to raise and be acknowledged. I don't know if Deputy City Manager Wood would like to add anything to that.
I have a quick presentation I'll go through, and I actually did update it this week to have some more instructions for those on iPads, as it's a little bit different on an iPad than it is on a regular screen. So I'll just shoot through this real quickly. If you're on just a regular PC and you want to raise your hand, you want to go down to the bottom of the screen. There's a participants tab. If you click on that button, that will bring up the participants box. And at the bottom right, should be a button there with 3 dots. Click on that, and that should give you the option to raise your hand. For an iPad, the actual control is actually at the top, so it's a little bit different than a regular Windows computer. Same thing, you can click on the participants tab, it'll pop a box up, you click on your name, and then that'll give you the option to click on raise hand. And if that doesn't work for you, there's a button to the side on the iPad that says more. Click on that button and it'll give you the option to raise hand there. You just scroll down and click on the raise hand button. And then if all else fails and you want to send me a message and you want to chat on the Windows machine to the left here, you'll see you click on the chat button, you'll be able to send a message to me directly. And then on an iPad, if you click the chat button, it's just also in the more category. You can send a message. The message will only go to me, and nobody else will be able to see that message. So with that, I think we are ready to take comment, if there's any out there. And I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay, I do see where Commissioner Ryan has joined us. Commissioner Ryan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Holly, if you would please mark Mr. Ryan as attending, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we have no public hearings or items for a certain time. That will move us to consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of December 21, 2020.
Okay. Do I have any additions or deletions? If not, I would accept a motion to approve.
Commissioner Davis moved to approve the minutes.
Commissioner Hodges, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We will do a roll call.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Franz.
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
Aye. That passes 5-0. That will lead us to administration.
Item 7.1, second reading, ordinance number 20-11047, changing the zoning district classification from C3 and R3 to C4 on property addressed as 303 South Santa Fe Avenue, 300 South Fifth Street, and 308 South Fifth Street.
Okay, Mayor Hoppick here again, due to work I am doing with Lighthouse Properties. I am going to recuse myself and turn it over to Commissioner Hodges to do this
Commissioner
item.
Hodges here. Thank
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Have we had any comment either to the commissioners or to staff regarding this ordinance?
None to staff that I'm aware of.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the commission?
No.
Do we have any public comment? Then I will bring it back to the commission for action.
Vice Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number 20-11047 on second reading.
Commissioner Davis, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 20-11047 on second reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
Need a
Aye.
minute roll call
Oh,
for second.
sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
thank you, Commissioner Davis.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
All right, that motion passes 4-0, and we will invite Mayor Hoppick back to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move to item 7.2.
Item 7.2, second reading, ordinance number 20-11048, granting to Kansas Gas Service a division of One Gas Inc. and its successors and assigns a national gas franchise.
Okay, I would ask staff if there have been any comments.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have any further questions or comments on this ordinance?
No question.
Okay, with that, I would ask if there's any public comment.
I see no hands.
Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the commission.
Commissioner Hodges, I move that we approve ordinance number 20-11048 on second reading.
Commissioner Davis, second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve on second reading ordinance number 20-11048. I would ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
Aye. That passes 5-0. That will bring us to item 7.3.
Item 7.3, second reading, ordinance number 20-11049, establishing the former SAFB Environmental Project Fund.
Okay, again, I would ask staff if there has been any comments relating to this ordinance.
None that I know of.
Okay, I would ask fellow commissioners if there's any comments or questions.
None.
None.
Okay, I would ask if there's any one from the public that would like to comment on this.
There are no hands.
Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, this is Carl Ryan. I move we approve ordinance number 20-11049 on second reading.
Commissioner Hodges, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve on second reading ordinance number 20-11049. I would ask for a roll call.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
I'm sorry, did you get that? I said aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
Aye. That also passes 5-0. That will lead us to item 7.4.
Item 7.4, resolution number 20-7925, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Charles Lindberg to provide indigent counsel services for the Salina Municipal Court.
Okay, I will turn it over to City Manager Scragg, and I see Brenda Stoss is on with us, so.
Correct. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Mike Scragg, City Manager here, and as Mayor Hoppick mentioned, Judge Brenda Stoss is on the line as well, or on the Zoom call as well, and certainly we'll turn to her for details and expertise as needed. As you probably already know, as an operator of a municipal court, we have a legal obligation to provide legal counsel for indigent defendants that might have the possibility of their sentence involving incarceration if they're found guilty. And so for the past 17 years, we've used a rotational legal panel of 3 attorneys that serve as indigent counsel as needed on an agreed upon contract basis. And so as the staff report indicates, we agree to a split, a cost of $2,250 per month. And the workload is split among the 3-member panel based on an actual contractual agreement basis. And so that's why it comes to you rather than being treated as a personnel matter or hiring on my part as the city manager. So in addition to the $2,250 a month fee paid to each attorney, then there's also a provision if they, for additional fees if cases are appealed to district court or beyond. For bench trials, there's an additional cost of $50 an hour with a maximum of $300 per case. And the hourly rate for jury trials is the same, but the maximum is $500 based on the likelihood that a trial could take longer. So the staff report provides additional details about the arrangement. The attorneys are required to represent their clients with competent professional services, or the city can terminate the contract at any time. If a conflict of interest occurs, the client's reassigned to a different legal counsel. If either party may terminate the agreement with 90 days notice. The duration is 1 year with automatic renewal provisions, and ordinary legal expenses and document preparation are the responsibility of the attorney, and appeals beyond district court are handled by a separate negotiated arrangement. And the contract is not assignable from the attorney that we enter into the agreement with to someone else. The current panel leading up to this consisted of Kansas Legal Services, Andrea Swisher, and Allie Burris. Kansas Legal Services has been on the panel since 2006. In October of 2020, municipal court staff shared that they believe that due to the length of time that the contract had been in place, it would be appropriate to solicit interest in the panel from local attorneys and consider interested applicants. Notice was given to Kansas Legal Services according to the contract requirements, and they did not submit an expression of interest to continue with the contract. We then, the city manager's office, distributed requests to the local Salina Bar, which reached out to all the local attorneys and had 2 attorneys express interest. Those attorneys were interviewed, and ultimately our recommendation to you is to enter into this agreement with Charles Lindberg. He has a current practice of doing criminal defense and serving on the Salina County District Court's appointment panel. And his experience is the reason for our recommendation of him to you today. With respect to the fiscal note, these are budgeted expenses. It is not a cost increase compared to our prior arrangement, so it doesn't really represent a new fiscal expense. The options that you have before you are that you could adopt the resolution that's presented and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with Mr. Lindberg. You could adopt that resolution with amendments, or you could choose not to adopt the resolution. And then we'd have to regroup and consider alternatives in terms of filling that indigent counsel position. With that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. And as I said, Judge Brenda Stoss is on the Zoom call with us as well.
Okay. Do I have any questions for staff from the commission?
Commissioner Davis, Judge Stoss, glad you're here. I'll ask this question to you and the city manager, if you don't mind. I was curious to how many cases per day, per week, per month the average attorney is seeing. And my reason for asking is, if the attorney is responsible for, I'm assuming, the cost of document preparation and the time for document preparation, does this amount of money offer enough financial incentive to make sure that the defendant is getting adequate defense or legal counsel?
Right now, on average, each attorney is assigned in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 cases a month. And so, of course, as they're closing out cases, then they're acquiring new cases. The amount of document preparation that the panel attorneys do is pretty minimal, just because based on the types of cases we have, there's not a lot of pleadings that are filed in the misdemeanor cases. The staff at the court, in the prosecutor's office, provides all of the police reports and everything to the attorneys automatically, so they don't have to file discovery requests, and those kinds of routine paperwork is avoided. So we're comfortable at this point with the compensation level based on the caseload.
Judge Stoss, you might also explain what we do in the way of scheduling that makes it a little favorable to the counselors.
Each of the attorneys is assigned one Wednesday a month in municipal court, and we have a couple of scheduling dockets on Wednesdays that are for any cases, but those attorneys only have one day a month that they have to appear in court, absent some unusual circumstances. Occasionally, if there's a particularly involved case, we might schedule it on a special setting at a different time. But for the most part, all of their appearances in court are on one day a month. And so then their time outside the court is just involved in meeting with their clients and preparing for those appearances.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Commissioner Hodges here. Judge Stoss, I noticed that Mr. Lindberg's business address was in Minneapolis. There's no residency or place of business requirement that they're in Saline County or anything like that?
That has not been a requirement that we have had. And in fact, currently, Andrea Swisher, who has been on the panel for a couple of years, her primary office currently is in Lindsborg. In the past, also, we had one attorney for a while that was on the panel that lived in Salina but worked out of her home. And so she didn't have a physical office that she met with clients. Mr. Lindberg, having cases in district court, uses conference rooms over in the city county building and that kind of thing to meet with clients. So again, we're comfortable that that's a workable situation. And of course, now even the attorneys that have offices in Salina are doing a lot of virtual meetings with their clients as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Certainly.
Any other questions from the commission? I guess, Judge Stoss, I would ask this is Mayor Hoppig, could you give us some examples of the type of cases that they would be handling?
Well, as the staff report indicated, a person is entitled to appointed counsel if there's a possibility that they could be sentenced to serve jail time if convicted of the charge. So traffic infractions do not provide for an attorney to be appointed. So primarily the caseload of our indigent panel are things like DUI, domestic battery, theft charges, which a lot of our theft charges are shoplifting type charges at local merchants, batteries, trespassing. Those are kind of the primary things. Also, ordinance violations, such as some of the animal control ordinances or other property zoning type violations, carry the possibility of a jail sentence. So occasionally we have something like that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? If not, I would ask if there's anyone from the public that would like to weigh in at this time.
I don't see any, Mayor Hoppig.
Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the commission for action.
Commissioner Davis, I move we adopt resolution 20-7925, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Charles Lindberg to provide indigent counsel services for the Salina Municipal Court.
Commissioner Hodges, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 20-7925. I would ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Krantz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
Aye. That passes 5-0. I'd like to thank Judge Brenda Strauss for joining us today. Thank you very much and have a happy new year.
Thank you.
Okay, that will lead us to 7.5.
Item 7.5, Salina Media Connection Agreement Amendment.
Okay, Mr. Wood.
Mayor and Commissioners, Jacob Wood, Deputy City Manager. As you know, several months ago in June, we actually had a discussion about Salina Media Connection and the services that they provide. They, as you know, provide for a couple of cable channels. They do our public educational governmental television programming services through our PEG channels that are played on Cox Cable. The discussion in June kind of centered around SMC and their performance and their ability to provide adequate service. That discussion resulted in a direction given by the City Commission to extend the current agreement. The current agreement had an expiration date of December 31st, 2020. But the direction from the Commission at the time was to extend that agreement for 6 months to June 30th of 2021. So at the time, staff provided notice of termination of the current agreement with Salina Media Connection. And then what you have before you today is an amendment to the agreement that would allow for that extension to happen. So this actually just formalizes the action that was taken back in June. So the agreement that you have in front of you would extend it would extend the current contract till June 30th of 2021, and then it will provide that we would have to provide notice of termination if we were going to go a different direction by May 31st or 30 days before the end of that agreement in order to let them know that we would want to do something different. So over the last 6 months, SMC has continued to fulfill the requirements laid out in the agreement. They've continued to provide the programming to record our city meetings. They've continued to do social media and create some of their own content. Actually, they've done several things in their own content realm. They've done their own special news program that they're casting every day. They've done some things for the county. They did a special program where they did some stuff for the jail for the county. So they have done some different special programming things over the last 6 months. One of the biggest concerns that we've had over the last couple of years is with the quality of the audio and video in the commission chambers. At this point, there's not really been anything done to improve that. The SMC has ordered new cameras. We did an assessment of the cameras, microphones, and speaker system in the commission chambers, and they have ordered new cameras. They've ordered a new soundboard that they think will work to help improve the quality of the audio. That equipment, I believe, has arrived, but it has not been installed just yet. And SMC is on the line, as you can see. Greg Stevens is there and some of the board members, so they will be able to speak to some of this as well. They actually did do some upgrades. Cox Communications is doing some upgrades right now. Actually, today they were doing some upgrades that should allow for digital video. We've had some issues in the past where we have an analog system, we have analog cameras here, and then it gets shipped across the street, and going back and forth between digital and analog seems to create some issues with the increased capability that Cox is allowing for digital streaming across the street, and then the new cameras that they're putting in the commission chambers. That should alleviate some of those issues that we've had in the past. And I will say that SMC has been pretty flexible in dealing with COVID-19. They've done a lot of off-site meetings. They've been very flexible, trying to help us out with those situations. I just want to mention quickly, we have talked about alternate service provisions. A couple of things we've talked about is having another third party, somebody else, provide this service for us. I have talked to some of those. We've done some preliminary work just to see if there's anybody interested. And there is a local provider that is interested in doing this, and that they indicated that if we were to go out with an RFP to see who's interested, that they would need about 30 days to respond, and they would have no issues taking over the service on June 31st, if that's what the commission desired. Another option that we've discussed several times is bringing this service in-house, which would include hiring staff. At this point, we're doing an analysis of what that might take. It's anticipated it would take 1 to 2 additional staff people to provide the service of the city commission meeting casting all the meetings that happen here at City Hall. I just want to note that as we've gone through and looked at these other service provisions, we are not anticipating that we would be able to duplicate the services that SMC does outside of meeting casting. So the video at the River Festival, going downtown and recording the festival or the parades and stuff like that, we're not anticipating that we would be able to provide that type of service. It would take quite a bit more staff than what we're thinking we would have. So at this point, what we're really asking you to do is just extend the contract until June 30th, 2021. And then I will come back with a more detailed report here in a couple of weeks about some of those alternate provisions and get the commission's direction from there. So your options today are to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement amendment with Salina Media Connection that would extend the termination date to June 30th, 2021. If you don't do that, then the contract actually ends in a couple of days, and we won't have anybody casting our meetings on the cable channels. And so we're recommending that you do extend the contract. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And Greg Stevens is on the line. It looks like Nancy Klossmeyer is on the line as well, if you have any questions for them or if they would like to make any comment.
Commissioner Davis, just one question before they speak. Correct me if I'm wrong. If we took no action, their contract would automatically renew, wouldn't it?
Well, no, at this point, we've provided notice of termination of the contract. So the contract would end, and the agreement would end on December 31st.
Okay.
Commissioner Hodges. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Commissioner.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this question is for Mr. Wood or Mr. Stevens. At what point will the new Cox components and the new audio video components be up and running so that we can kind of get a sense of how those are functioning? Will we have a chance to evaluate those prior to, say, like, April 30th or something like that? I'm just kind of trying to work backwards from the notice. I mean, will we have sufficient time to evaluate whether or not those improvements are getting us to where we need to be?
And if I could piggyback onto that question just a little bit, it might help to clarify whether digital is the same as HD, because I know we get a lot of inquiries about HD as well.
And Greg, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, HD, digital.
Greg, I can't hear you. Can anybody else hear Greg?
No.
Breaking up.
It's on.
It's on, but is it?
Okay, I'll try to speak up a little more. Is that better?
It was for a split second, then we lost you.
Try.
Okay, you want to try it again?
It looks like he muted. Do you need to unmute him, Jacob?
Yeah, it does look like he's muted now.
Yeah. Still muted.
Okay.
Try it now, Greg.
Does that work?
Yeah, try it again,
It
Greg.
says the host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves.
Yeah, you're
we-
unmuted now.
You're unmuted, Greg.
We can hear you now.
You can?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to make a few comments. Jacob summarized pretty accurately what's been going on over here. And in relation to Mike's question, we're currently, the cameras in the city county building provide an analog signal. So an analog signal goes back to kind of the beginning of TV and a little bit afterwards. The next step up, which is more efficient for the cable industry, is digital. And there is another step above digital, which is HD. And there'll be another step coming down the pipe a few years down the road, which is next generation TV. So this is going to be a continual evolution that's going to take place. But we're going to, with the equipment that we'll be able to install in relation to Melissa's question, which would be cameras, and what Cox is doing over here, will have the ability to transfer digital all the way through the system.
And when do you think that'll be?
Well, Cox was here today, and USD 305 also utilizes the building for their servers, and they share equipment with Cox. So we're working on cables between our system and the boxes that Cox uses. And they'd promised us that they'd have it done by the end of the week, but I think it's going to stretch into next week maybe because the school is closed down for this week and they're all locked up over there. As far as the equipment that we have ordered for city county building, we need to order a few more cables between the cameras and some of the equipment, and as soon as we get that, we can start installing it. I've talked to Todd Miller, and it'd be based on his schedule a little bit, but it shouldn't take too long once we get started. So I think it could be done by the end of January or earlier if something comes up that we're not planning on. So there'll be plenty of time to analyze what's going on. I don't think you're going to see a really, really great, significant change between digital analog, but it should be a clearer signal and it should help us out a little bit.
And not to take us too far off the topic, with respect to HD, we've had conversations for years with Cox about HD capacity, and it's not a Salina Media Connection discretionary item. Cox is nationwide, their approach is not to provide that HD bandwidth to PEG channels.
Yeah. One thing that we did learn through some of the training that we did is HD actually saves the cable companies money because of the way it uses the bandwidth compared to digital. So there is an advantage to Cox doing that. A lot of the cable companies just didn't want to install the equipment that was needed. We're paying to install the equipment over here that's needed to go to digital. And another point is in the Northeast, the cable companies are now starting to install HD for their community access stations. So I think that could be something that, since the FCC is having some changes, that we could see more positive support for community access channels.
Commissioner Hodges here. Mr. Stevens, does that mean that as Cox makes HD bandwidth available, that the new equipment that you're installing will be compatible with that, or will that be another equipment upgrade that we would be looking at the city county building and or at Salina Media Connection?
Good question. I don't know if I know the answer to that, Melissa.
Okay.
I can check with them when I talk to them. I suspect that the digital equipment will provide HD signal just like it does through YouTube right now, and it'll be clear and clean. I don't think there'd be any cost on your side over there. I don't know over here if there would be or not.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments at this time?
One question, Commissioner Davis, and I apologize for not having kept up with it. Have you secured a new executive director? I mean, outside of the board serving in that capacity?
We still have a great management team, Dr. David.
No, well, the reason I asked was when there was a candidate last year and the contract was in limbo, there was concern that the contract being in limbo would be a deterrent to someone accepting your office. And I'm just wondering where you were in that scheme of things as far as...
That probably still stands as an issue, but we haven't been pursuing a position there at this time. What we have been doing, and Deborah can probably answer this a little bit, is focusing on building up our staff and training and increasing those numbers so that we can do more things than has been done in the past. Beyond the community, provide services for Liberty Football, for United Way, for Catholic Charities, for Love Chloe, different groups that we've been working with that we haven't been doing in the past. And also covering some of the events that are going on. We hope to improve that. And in the coming year, we're going to focus more on marketing, which is getting our message out so people understand who we are, because a lot of people think we're a branch of the government, a branch of your operation. And that needs to be clarified. And also help people understand when the programs are playing that they're interested in. Like we're doing Kids Connection now, we've been doing that for several months, and there are other programs that we're going to be starting. The news is kind of a pilot program right now. We want to try to upgrade that in the future as time permits. 2020's caused us to learn how to be more flexible, and we've turned over some meetings on 2 or 3 days time that we weren't planning on doing. And I think we can provide that local flexibility that's real positive for the community. Can I let Deborah talk just a minute or two about some of the staff issues? Go ahead.
I hadn't intended to speak, but I'm happy to speak because what we've been doing since the board created the management team of Greg Stevens, Nancy Klossmeyer, and me is we've been able to, Greg is more technical. He's got more technical background. Nancy has just a fabulous volunteer experience. And I have experience working with folks who want to work and also folks who have disabilities. And I might just let you know that with our small staff, we have 3/4 of our staff with disabilities that are working and doing great work here. So that was something that was just an enlightenment for me when I began to work with the staff here. What I was saying is that we have been training staff individually. All the staff work together and are a great team, but they all have somewhat different skills, and that's just what happens in a television station. But we have seen pretty much a change in staff except for maybe one staff person in the year. And that's because we get young folks with great skills. They get trained and then they go to a larger place. And that just is what happens. We've had some staff come back and work with businesses here, coming back here, filming because we have the studio and we're a television station. And Zach told me just last week that this is how he got started here. And he loves coming back here. He was working in New York, and when he came back here last week, he was on his way to California to get a better job. And it was just really heartwarming for me to find out that Salina Media Connection has, he's not the only one that's been trained here, gone to a bigger place and then on to the next job. So what we're doing is we're creating new programming. One of the programs that we created is Salina Connected. You will see in January a new program called Spanish Connections. And that host has been so fabulously busy that she has several programs already ready for the new year. It is going to be in Spanish. And we have talked about also adding the English so that people can know what's happening in the program. I think I got off track, but I'm so excited about what we're doing and the programs that we're creating that I just had to tell you about that. So the staff have been working and training and creating, and then we are also building our volunteer group. Our hours in volunteers has not gone down much in the winter, even with COVID. We still have great volunteers that are doing some absolutely wonderful things here in the studio. I don't know if I answered your questions because I just started thinking about all the things that I did want to share that have been happening here.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Okay, any other questions or comments? Ms. Hanf, is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this?
I don't see any.
Okay.
Mayor, a quick point, if I may.
Yes.
Greg Bingston, legal counsel. Relating to Commissioner Davis's question, and certainly Jacob responded correctly, I wanted to just make the point from a legal standpoint. We are certainly not disregarding the significance of the notice of intent to terminate that was provided at the end of June. That's why you see in the amendment that section 2, because that was notice of intent to terminate effective December 31. I believe it is certainly your prerogative to withdraw that notice. And that's why we have provided in that section of the amendment that you would be withdrawing that notice. And the other party, Salina Media Connection, is concurring with that withdrawal. So that's how you have that prerogative at this point in time, and how we can go forward with that adjustment if that's the way you choose to go.
Commissioner Davis, could I just ask a question? In years past, if we failed to deliver a notice of termination at the mid-year point, and the contract automatically renewed. So what we're doing now is simply extending the notice of termination, which still is not back to the way the contract used to be, which was automatically renewing unless we serve notice halfway through. So we're kicking this can down the road 6 months unless we would withdraw the notice of termination, which would then put it back on an automatic renewal, or
Yes, I think you can think of this as being the same conceptually with contracted or reduced timeframes. Rather than automatically renewing for a year, the automatic renewal periods are 6 months. And rather than having to give that notice of intent to terminate, if that were the case, 6 months in advance, that has been reduced to 30 days in advance. So over the course of the next year, there would be the two opportunities for the commission to evaluate, either in anticipation of the July 1 renewal or the renewal as of January 1, 2021. Does that make sense?
It makes, well, I understand it. I'll answer it that way. Giving us a 30-day, the opportunity to give a 30-day notice probably would be shooting ourselves in the foot because we probably wouldn't be able to ramp up some of the plan within 30 days. And I'm just sensing the anxiety on Salina Media's side, knowing every 6 months this is coming up. What I was going to ask, Ashley, is that if in June, if we decide to continue the contract, can we at that point then move it back to a year and just renew in June as opposed to December or January?
I think the short answer to that, subject to any comment the staff might have, is that as long as the parties are in agreement, we can structure the renewal terms and advance notices of any termination as you would wish.
Yeah, Mike Scragg here. We can certainly do that. I would acknowledge that this is kind of a hybrid approach. This has come out of our past discussions about performance concerns and wanting to not terminate, but create additional opportunity to review and assess and see if we can get back on track. So I don't think what's in this proposal and what Mr. Bankson described is not necessarily the intended approach going forward in perpetuity. It's kind of in response to the direction that we got in June of last year to buy ourselves 6 months to work our way through this conversation.
Right. So I guess it's just the 30-day notice that has me little concerned. It's kind of too short to be of any practical use, probably to either side.
Yeah, I think staff would agree with you. I mean, we've had conversations about the timeline and needing to get to you as the governing body and get a decision well in advance of that, just for a number of reasons, including, if we make the transition, needing the lead time to do that, as well as then anticipating communicating with Salina Media Connection sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Mayor Hoppick here and Commissioner Davis, I think you're correct. And that's one of the reasons we'll be reviewing our options in January, is because prior years, we always were, but we were, up against that deadline and never had, even if we'd wanted to, didn't have the time frame in which to make any changes if we wanted to. So you're exactly right. That 30 days really doesn't give us, but that's why we're going to be addressing it in January of next year.
Well, June or July, correct?
What the mayor's referring to is staff is going to come back to you with a presentation on
okay, right.
Options. Yeah.
being an in-house or outsourcing.
Yeah, my brain flipped forward when you said next year.
Yeah.
Oh.
13 months. It went 13 months instead of 5 days. Okay. Okay. So then, practically speaking, we really ought to know by the end of March or April what we're going to do with this contract for the rest of the year.
I would, Mayor Hoppick, I would think we'd have to, yes.
Okay. All my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Did we ask for public comment? I cannot remember.
I believe we did.
Okay. I did too, so, okay.
No, I'm sorry. I said I don't believe that we did.
Okay.
but I don't see any public on the line either. But Jacob?
Yeah, there aren't any raised hands.
Okay. Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the commission for action.
Commissioner Hodges, I move that we authorize the mayor to sign an amendment to the agreement between the City of Salina and Community Access Television of Salina Incorporated, DBA Salina Media Connection, extending the termination date for its contract to June 30th, 2021.
Commissioner Davis, seconds.
Okay, Mayor Hoppick here. We have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign an amendment to the agreement between the City of Salina and Community Access Television of Salina. With that, we will do a roll call.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
Aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, I do not believe we have any development business at this time, so that will lead us. Do we have any other business besides the?
Mayor Hoppick.
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges here. I just had one item that I wanted to make sure the rest of the commission was aware of, and I'm going to forward it to staff this evening. I'd gotten a phone call from a resident who uses the Kenwood Park, kind of informal dog park that's developed by the Tri-Rivers Stadium area. And I know that we had some conversations in terms of the lease that was going to be held by the Fair Board as opposed to the county. And it was brought to my attention that notices have gone up that that dog park is going to be effectively closed as of January 1st. And it appears that there's a lot more people that use that dog park than what I was aware of. So I'll forward that to staff, and I don't want to put Mr. Bankston on the spot in terms of what our agreement is with the various entities, but it seems to me that that's a park that, given the fact that the dog park behind the animal shelter is necessarily reserved quite often for exercising the dogs that are at the shelter, and Barclay Park has regular closures whenever the old airport is going to be used for an activity like SCCA. I guess this is a backup park that a lot of people and even out-of-towners find their way to. So at any rate, I didn't know if that was something that, where exactly we stood on that, because I couldn't remember what our previous conversations were in regard to that, but it's something that I'd sure like to take a look at if at all possible.
This is Mike Scragg. We can certainly staff that through. We've not had any inquiries from anyone that wishing to operate it as a dog park. It was the county that I think was operating it kind of ancillary to their lease of the property. So my conversations with the Fair Board have not involved any indication of interest on their part of operating it as a dog park. So if we were going to do anything, I think it would be the city developing it as an additional dog park to be operated by us.
And thank you, Commissioner Hodges here. I was a little confused because I asked the person to take a snapshot of the notice that was on the fence that indicated it was going to be closed. And it was, because I said, I'm sure that had to come from the Fair Board or the county, but it was from Animal Services. So at any rate, if we could just, you take a look at that. The person that I spoke to said that they have a devoted enough group of people that if it's a matter of, taking out waste, doing any cleaning, doing any maintenance or anything to the ground or whatever, that they'd be happy to get a group together to meet to see what the city would want to have done in order to keep that park open for their use. So
okay, we can staff it through.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I have one item, and I was out wandering around town the other day, and I noticed that we have effectively demolished Hawthorne Park. The playground there that was relatively new is now gone, and I was wondering if we are, or if that's a permanent, or if we're planning on replacing it with something, or what the situation is with that.
And I think you're seeing it in mid-replacement. We have new playground equipment that's being installed there. So you must have seen it as we were removing the prior equipment.
Well, yeah, I saw it one day and it looked like it was about half gone. And then about a day or two later, it was completely gone. And I didn't know if there had been, something that occurred, but we are replacing the equipment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that project should be done in about 2 weeks. They tore it down and kind of had Christmas happen, so they didn't get it completed, but it should be about 2 weeks.
And I probably should have remembered it was on the list, but I didn't, so apologies for that. But I'm glad we're replacing it.
Okay, if there's no other business, that will lead us to 9.1, which is an executive session, and I would look to Mr. Scragg, 15, 20 minutes. What do you?
Let's say 20.
20 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move the City Commission recess into executive session for 20 minutes to discuss the subject of legal considerations related to the city's obligation to fund the 2020 Transportation Services Grant under the city's agreement with OCCK for funding public transportation services with legal counsel based upon the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2. The open meeting will resume in this room at 5:18, allowing for electronic transfers.
Okay.
Commissioner Ryan, second.
Mayor Hoppick here. We have a motion, a second, to move into executive session for 20 minutes, resuming at 5:18. I'll look to Mr. Wood to lead us into that. So,
Okay, I have opened the room. You should see a prompt to join the room. If you'll do that, it will take
Do we
all
need
the
to vote?
Oh, gosh.
My screen's covered up with the join option. Is the mayor
Me
still
too.
on?
He is not. I will, okay. I'll go get him. I'll be right back.
I guess we're looking at 5:19 now.
Well, I was debating 15 or 20 minutes, so.
See, God, I'd love to know how to turn that alert off.
Looks like the mayor is muted. Jacob?
Thank you.
That's what you get for leaving early. And let's move this back to 5:20. Can we do that?
Sounds good. 5:20.
Since the mayor got a little, okay. We have a motion and a second to move into executive session for 20 minutes. We'll do a roll call. Well, I'll go ahead and do it.
Here we go. Now,
Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
Aye. Okay, now we'll move into executive session.
Oh, wait.
oh, hang on.
Greg Binkson, if I may.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure Jacob noted that Aaron Martin will be joining us, and he's on. If we can include him, please.
Got it.
Thank you.
Can we go now?
Yes, you can go.
Here we come.
Oh, we lost the mayor.
Did we lose the mayor in translation? Oh, wait, there we go.
He's coming back.
Okay, you have everybody back?
I think we do.
Hey, can you see everybody?
Yes, we're all back.
Okay, we're back into the open meeting. I will, Mr. Scragg, are you there?
Sure. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, as a quick the issue of funding for OCCK public transportation, we have an existing agreement with them that was entered into prior to COVID and did not anticipate additional CARES funding being distributed for, in general, let alone for transportation purposes. We've had a number of conversations with staff of OCCK comparing the original budget to their actual expenses and accounting for grant funds that were made available, and then the impacts on their operational expenses and revenues and the impacts on our contribution. The conclusion of that conversation is a recommendation on my part, which is agreeable to Pat Wallarius with OCCK, that we withhold our last quarterly payment, which would typically have been $202,922.50, and that OCCK also reimburse us $294,000, which would have a net benefit or impact on the city's finances to the positive of $496,922.50. That accounts for the cost allocation of allowable expenses for fixed route and paratransit transportation that we subsidize, and accounts for the additional grant funding that OCCK realized in 2021, and we believe is an equitable distribution of those grant funds to both entities. So if you see fit as the governing body, if you would make a recommendation to concur with the city's manager's recommendation to accept $496,922.50 as reimbursement from OCCK in light of grant funds realized in 2021, I think would be sufficient.
Commissioner Hodges, I do have one question. In the past, I know we talked about the city potentially being asked to make a contribution toward their new garage and service area. Do we have any outstanding commitments to that project at this time?
We do not. That was a request that was made, but we never committed to in the first place, and they've since communicated that with everything that's gone on, they think they're financially sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? If not, I would accept I guess I'll call it a recommendation to accept from.
Mr. Mayor, move we concur with the city manager's recommendation to accept, and I hope the figure is correct, $496,452.50 as an adjustment payment from OCCK for our transportation contract.
Commissioner Hodges, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the recommendation from the city manager on the adjustment with OCCK. With that, we'll do a roll call.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
Aye. Okay. Thank you very much, staff, for your work on that. Appreciate it. Okay, that will lead us to 9.2. And I believe, Jacob, if Mr. Wood, if you're there, that just the commissioners will exit into executive session. And you are able to make that happen, correct?
Yes, it'll be the same process as previous executive sessions. It'll just be the commissioners will go in, and when you're done with the session, if you just leave the room, you should come directly back in here. If you find that when you come back it didn't work, then you can log back into the meeting as you did in the beginning.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Mayor, how many minutes?
Oh, I was going to say 15. Do you think we can or do that in 15 and?
With all due respect, no.
Okay.
Just judging from past performance.
Yeah.
I mean, I could, but I just, put us together.
Let's do 20 minutes to start with, and then we can come back if we need to.
And if I could, I impose for a 5-minute courtesy break before we begin.
Okay.
I like the sound of that.
Okay.
All right. I move the city commission recess into executive session for 20 minutes after a 5-minute recess to discuss the city manager's performance evaluation based upon the need to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume in this room at
Let's
5:50.
let's do
5:53. 5:55.
5:53.
5:53.
Okay.
Commissioner Hodges.
Do we go into that session before the 5-minute break or after? Just for technical consideration.
Can you go ahead and set that up, Jacob? We'll go on into it.
Yes, I can do that.
From an
Well,
open point, you probably ought to wait till after the break.
Wait till after. Okay.
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 Yeah, I'll open the meeting in 5 minutes. You'll
Okay.
have access to the room.
Thank you.
We need a vote?
Oh, yeah. Yes, let's vote. Okay.
Commissioner
We do a roll
Davis,
call, I think
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
she's already left. Okay.
Commissioner Bryan,
Commissioner Ryan?
Aye.
and
And
Mayor Hoppick.
aye. So that's 4 on. So, okay, we'll be back here in 5 minutes.
Looks like 5 to me, now 6.
Yep. You're all back.
Okay. Okay, there's no action to be taken at this time.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
the only action I would suggest would be that we add another executive session meeting to
I was going to do this, like, yeah. When you
next
do
week's
that,
meeting for the
Yep.
same, to continue this discussion
next week.
on personnel matters of non-elected personnel.
Okay. Okay, anything else? If not, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to
Commissioner
adjourn.
Hodges, so moved.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. Roll call? I bet I can do that. Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Franz?
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan?
Aye.
Mayor Hoppix with all of you. We'll see everyone. Have a happy New Year, everyone. Have a happy New Year.
New Year.
We'll see you next week.
Today,